Hey everyone, Kyle Mike here from MLive.com, joined by Justin Rogers. Golden Tate made some news this week, Justin, about tipping plays and that sort of thing, and some comments to 105.1. He said opponents were calling out plays, that there was some prediction going on there, some projection. Obviously, it seemed the Lions were giving away some tendencies offensively. The Lions today kind of maybe disputed the significance of that. What's your take on the whole ordeal?
You know, I kind of was already hesitant to think it was that big of a deal before the Lions started dismissing it. It started with Ryan Clark's comments yesterday and hearing a former NFL defensive player explain kind of my initial perception or give words to my initial perception. These guys come in every week. They get tips and tendency sheets on alignments, personnel packages, what teams like to do in certain situations, and listen, there are only so many routes you can run. There are only so many run plays you can run, and you can't hide them all. So the idea that teams are identifying some plays, not that big a deal. The fact that the Lions, with their talent, still can't beat teams, I think, is the bigger concern. Why is Calvin Johnson struggling to get yards at the catch? Why is Golden Tate struggling to have a bigger impact? Why is Joey Bell averaging 1.2 yards a carry, whatever it is? I think those are the much bigger concerns right now.
Point taken. I disagree. I think I understand what you're saying and what the Lions were saying today. I do. That you watch all this. I mean, these guys watch film religiously. You know, Stafford's in here at 6 a.m. watching film. Like, he's obviously going to know some tendencies about a defense. But my counterpoint would be, if it's unremarkable, then why is it such big news? Why was it such? Why did Tate say this, and why have the Broncos come out? Two different players have come out and said we knew what was coming. Why did the safety Bruton come out and say, I recognized the formation, I knew when they did this and that, and then the tailback cut block, I knew exactly where the ball was going. I read Stafford, I jumped the route, and that's a huge pick. I understand the tendency thing and all that stuff, and that you will have an idea of what a team is doing. But this seems very specific to me that either the Lions are tipping plays at worst, which is awful, and I think that's an indictment of Joe Lombardi, or at the best, they have tendencies that opponents are reading and they're capitalizing. Because the Lions have breakdowns on the offensive line, but they're all over the place, and if you're giving away tendencies, you're just making your job that much more difficult.
Yeah, I think back to a conversation I had with Glover Quinn last year. He intercepted a pass, and I believe it was against Minnesota. I can't remember. I think it was an interception in the end zone at Minnesota. And I asked him about the play after the game, and he said, I had seen it on film before. They ran, whatever he called it, a double post. And he said, I saw what they were doing from the start with their alignment, and I was able to get into position. He was already in the area. They don't change their assignments, but he was able to put himself in better position to make the interception. And that's how turnovers happen often. It's not the tip balls. It's guys being in the right position to make plays. This offense has been around a long time. It's the Saints offense. The quote you used from your Super Bowl column a while back, Drew Brees said he could identify, 90% of the plays.
He said he recognized 95% of the playbook, and he could call out about 70% of the plays before they happened.
So there's plenty of film on this offense. Of course, tendencies, I think, are going to be shown. Should the Lions find more ways to creatively hide it? Sure, but according to Matthew Stafford, and I can only take him at his word because we're never going to be able to identify these ourselves, this is the first time they ran these two plays. So there are different elements of the play.
But isn't that the crazy thing? I mean, I understand what Stafford's saying, and I believe him. I mean, I also believe that if Stafford thought he could get a competitive advantage by saying the sky is green, he would say the sky is green. But in this case, I do believe him. I believe him that this was the first time he ran these plays, but that still has to be discouraging, the fact that you can run a new play and the opponent you're still tipping something to the opponent. And I'm not sure if it goes to the extent of, oh, hey, this is this exact play with this name, and we know exactly what they're going to do. But even if, in the best case scenario, you're showing tendencies that the opponent is jumping, and the Bruton play, it ended in a pick. That's a game-changing pick. That's a problem. Even if it's not straight-up play tipping or something, there's still tendencies being divulged to the opponent, and that's an issue for an offense that really needs all the help it can get at this point.
Like that play in particular, no, both of them actually were, I think, outstanding defensive plays. The Roby pick, the window was there, the cornerback made a ridiculous read and grab with Bruton. Stafford's throw wasn't that great. If it would have been 6 inches higher, I know 6 inches is a world of difference sometimes in football, but 6 inches higher, Calvin had plenty of separation on the corner. The safety had dropped off. The window was there. Bruton just made a great play, and there are natural tendencies in football. I think we've highlighted this week, or I've highlighted on Twitter, that Theo Riddick has been on the field something like 59 plays, 57 passes, and then a guy from PFF countered with Mike Clay from PFF countered with Lance Dunbar, the Dallas Cowboys running back, has been on the field for 98% of passing plays. Teams give away certain things with personnel. It's just the way it is. But yet Theo Riddick has not been, stopped, I guess, in passing plays. Lance Dunbar's got
you can't stop
21. Well,
to contain.
Yeah, Dunbar's got 21 receptions right now. I think he's leading all running backs. So you can tip things, but again, it doesn't matter if the defense can't stop you in the individual matchups. And right now, the Lions are losing individual matchups, and they're losing them at the line of scrimmage.
Again, that's where I agree with you. Your point is appreciated, and I think ultimately it's execution. If Ryan Reef weren't sucking at left tackle, and if Cornelius Lucas weren't sucking at right tackle, or Legion Waddle wasn't coming back from an ACL, or if Larry Warford wasn't battling an ankle injury in 2 out of the 3 games, on and on and on, then we're talking about a very different offense, even if you are showing tendencies. But the fact of the matter is the Lions are overmatched at this point on the offensive line, and they are obviously tipping plays, or they are showing tendencies at a regular pace. That's not in dispute. It's not. And maybe a better team overcomes those things, or they don't matter, or whatever. But the Lions aren't a better team offensively, and that's the fact of it. And they have to be. I think they need more out of Joe Lombardi. They need more out of this scheme, because the scheme is obviously defenses are poking holes in it in various ways. And I think part of it is the tendencies that it's showing that has been around for a while. And that to me is an issue. Even if the Lions sort of downplay it, I get it. You win all of your executions and assignments and stuff, you'll be better off. But the Lions aren't. They need to be better, and I think that's making them susceptible to some of these things with the play calling.
Yeah, and I think they need to be better at running the football. By having to pass so often, they're passing on 70% of their first downs right now. They're not running the ball effectively. Nobody's running the ball effectively. It's making that offense more predictable than it even should be. I'm sure the tendency sheets are almost laughable right now because the Lions can't run the football. So
if you look at it this week, the Seahawks are basically impenetrable on the ground. I don't think that ground game. I'm sorry, their pass defense is basically impenetrable at this point with that secondary. Richard Sherman, they're getting their safety back. All these guys. Earl Thomas, I think, is still one of the best safeties in the game. The passing game is probably not going to do much this week, so it has to get done on the ground. But the Lions have been terrible on the ground, so I think that's a pretty poor matchup, because the one place where they could actually beat the Seahawks, they're not beating anybody at.
Yeah, I still think Calvin Johnson, Golden Tate can beat any secondary in the NFL, but without that balance, and teams can key in on that and drop an extra linebacker back into the passing lanes like Bruton did on that interception, you're going to have a tough time. And the Lions so far have had a tough time.
The Seahawks are second against the pass this year. It could be a long day in store for the Lions offense. We'll be all over it this week. For Justin Rogers, I'm Kyle Meinke. We are MLive. Keep it right here.